I don't like to use this word, and I think I said that the last week, but how is Anthony Joshua that big of a favourite? And I'm sorry if you are Muslim or if you do not like talking about odds and stuff, that he is a favourite against Ngannou. Like, massive. I'm going to put the numbers up there. 1.13 to 6. Let me give you a bit of context to what Tyson Fury was with Ngannou. I'm going to have all the metrics on the screen right now, but this is what it was for Tyson Fury. So if you want to look at the decimal, he was only 6 points more than Joshua to beat Ngannou. And the reason I find that really weird is, look at the performance with Ngannou against Tyson Fury. Surely, if his performance was that good, Joshua against Ngannou should be almost evens, or maybe give Joshua the slight favourite because he was a boxer. But then my argument to that is, Francis Ngannou, you could argue, just beat the best heavyweight boxer on the planet right now. And most people will say that. Even though I think Fury won by 1 round, I said it last week, most people are going to say Ngannou won. And if you want to look at what people agreed with to back it up, apart from the media who just like to ride Fury, a lot of people were giving it to Ngannou. And I don't believe it was just because of the knockdown. Because I said the rounds you want to look at that make it competitive were rounds 2, 4 and 10. With 10 being the most controversial because it was like a very passive round by both fighters. But that being said, Joshua should not be this massive favourite over Ngannou, because Ngannou has got a lot of things that will cause Anthony Joshua problems. For example, look at the record. Like, look what I put as the title. Let me just show you the record of Joshua quickly. You see he's 27-3, but in my opinion, the last 3 fighters he's had is what the title says. And I'll tell you who is. Robert Helenius is a cannon. Jermaine Franklin, in my opinion, is also a cannon. He's young and upcoming. Well, not young, but he's upcoming. And he had a good first round against Anthony Joshua. Like, he started pressuring forward, hurting him with the jab, and he was like targeting the nose of Anthony Joshua. But Anthony Joshua is a very slow starter. And that is why I'm like, why are people very confident? I know he just TKO'd Otto Wallin, but honestly, he quit in the corner. He didn't knock him out. The only knockout he's really had was against Robert Helenius, and that was a very weird performance in my opinion. Like, he started off very slow again, and I think the reason he starts off very slow is he fights like a scared fighter at times, but then 1 minute he fights like an aggressive fighter like we saw in the Otto Wallin. He's a very inconsistent performer, and that is because he's always changing coaches, training things in the camp, coming up with these lines like, I'd rather be a warrior in the garden than a gardener at war. Make of that what you want. It just sounds ridiculous to me. And we're starting to see who Anthony Joshua really is now. Like, you see him be a bit more aggressive in interviews and stuff. And you might think, how does that make you think Ngannou's got a better chance? Well, the reason I think he's got a better chance is because of how he fought against Fury. The route for Ngannou to beat Fury in everyone's mind was apply the pressure to Fury, don't let him dance around and use his range, get inside and try and beat him up by throwing like a hook in the pocket or like a cross, and he dropped him with a hook. So against Anthony Joshua, you'll notice a lot of the opponents he beats, they usually have like a soy build, and I don't like to use that word because it's a bit like you're a heavyweight, you're not meant to look too toned, but just look at Robert Helenius right here. Look at his chin. Every time he loses, it's usually by a knockout. And they were hyping up the fact that he won a fight and then he was going to fight like a week after or something. But in my opinion, okay, he fought a week ago, but who is this guy? Like, seriously. Mika Milanen, this guy who he fought, again, he was on the way up, but he's 42. So how can I really say that? It weren't really that impressive that Robert Helenius beat this guy, and they were gassing it up, saying, oh, he beat this guy on the weekend, looked very good, now he's fighting Joshua. In my opinion, that is irrelevant, because Helenius has always been known as having really a weak chin, and he got put down as the rounds went by. And that is why I'm saying he's fighting a cans. Like, he isn't putting in performances that are making me very confident. Tyson Fury was toying around with Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder was just throwing that right cross and begging it landed, and it did land and he kept getting up. But it wasn't really a competitive fight. So Fury doesn't really have competitive fights. One thing that might happen in the fight is he might get clipped and go down or get buzzed, but that's about it. But with Anthony Joshua, you're seeing the guys he's fighting like Hellenius. He fought this guy Jermaine Franklin, who he looked alright to be fair, but he's nothing special. It's nothing that would make me think that Anthony Joshua should easily steamroll Francis Ngannou, like the odds makers are already saying. And then look at the fighters who he fought before Francis Ngannou. Way better names. You don't really call them a can apart from Derek Chisora, which I can agree with. But Dillian White, Deontay Wilder, they were not cans at that point. They weren't. And that is why I'm saying, why the hell is Francis Ngannou so low? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, put something on him. I'm just going to say, don't expect what the odds... Don't use them odds as a good indicator to what's going to happen, because, one, look at the opponents who Tyson Fury fought before going into that fight, and they made the odds that low. And then look at the fighters who Anthony Joshua fought, these cans and mid-fighters. And because he got that one good finish over Otto Wallin, which in my opinion, it was a very good performance, and actually looked better than Fury in that fight. But at the end of the day, you're going to think, oh, you're doing boxing math, and boxing math wouldn't work. No, I'm not using that. I'm just telling you, look at these small things here. And I'll give you another thing about Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua, I've told you how inconsistent he is. I've told you that he can sometimes be a bit gun-shy when he's been hurt before. And I think Ngannou has got the power to hurt him. He struggled to hurt Fury because you'll notice with Fury, he's got very good defence. Although he gets dropped, which kind of sounds self-intuitive, he actually does have good defence when he's against the ropes. Anthony Joshua is more of a heavy-footed, non-agile, doesn't really move the head that much boxer. So I think that jab for Ngannou is always going to be there. And we saw how good he was. Like, he can switch the stance. For a guy making his debut, you don't expect that to happen. But Ngannou was changing the stance and then fighting with the jab at points. And I was like, what am I watching? So against Joshua, because he don't move his head, he is going to get jabbed a lot. And eventually, because Joshua's not very good against the ropes, and clinching against a guy like Ngannou is extremely hard because of the strength and because he was good in MMA at dealing with people trying to grab hold of him, which rarely happened because of his power, he should be able to deal with Anthony Joshua in the inside. And I think he will win them exchanges because of the pure strength and because of the carryover from the MMA grappling. So, in my opinion, I don't think Joshua will win this fight, and I think it's kind of a cash grab. Like, he's getting a bit older now. He's got some buildings in like finance. He owns like some complexes and stuff. This might be his checkout. And something I also find a bit weird, and I didn't even realise until right now, is to look at this. If you actually look on Boxing Rec right now, Fury is number 4 ranked. And I know you're going to be like, that doesn't mean anything because they're just numbers and pound for pound. It doesn't really mean much at the end of the day. But Ngannou right now, you can't see him on here. But Anthony Joshua, I'm sorry. Them wins, in my opinion, putting him there, I don't get it. But I think it's the fact that he's been active, which is why he's got that ranking. Because them fighters on paper are just either journeyman or just mid. And also looking at the topology votes as well, you're seeing more people pick Joshua, but bear in mind there's only, if I can read this, 59 people who have voted, so it's not really a massive estimation. And when you look at the YouTube polls, you're seeing that Ngannou is being picked more, and I think these odds need to go down for Ngannou. They should be way more even after what happened with Tyson Fury. Like, imagine if he was the champion. Would they then make Anthony Joshua a favourite against a champion? When does that ever happen? But God knows, it's going to be a good fight, and I do think Ngannou has a lot of things over Joshua in the fight. Even boxing IQ, which is a weird thing to think of when Ngannou in his MMA career has never been a guy who uses IQ. But against Fury, we saw it. And I think Joshua is really going to struggle trying to fight at range, which is going to work better for Ngannou because he's good. If he can do it with Fury, he should be able to do it with Joshua because he don't move his head, like I've mentioned. And Joshua's not really the best when it comes to being defensive. So His offensiveness will be good, but when he can get touched, it's like he doesn't know what to do. Like, look at the Ruiz fight when he got touched in the corner with multiple combinations. He weren't moving his head. He was just absorbing punches and then had to go down. And Ngannou doesn't throw with that many combinations, but when he can hit you once, he can do damage. And I can see him getting a TKO in this fight against Joshua. Like, there's been a few times now when he's almost been KO'd. In that Usyk fight, they stopped the bell, I believe, 10 seconds early because he was on the verge of getting TKO'd. I believe that was the first fight with Usyk. Yeah, it was. And against Ngannou, I think he's got the power where he can put you out with that one strike. And he's got some experience in boxing now. He's going to have the confidence off the Fury fight. And I think this goes into Ngannou's favour. And Joshua can sometimes look a bit unconfident going into fights. He looked a bit off with that Ruiz fight. Even in the first one, something just didn't look right about him. He just had this face where he was like, he didn't want to be there. And I think, I'm sorry to keep repeating it, Ngannou's going to win. So yeah, thank you for watching. Talk to you soon.